Hello and welcome to this week's pregame chat. Doug Kyed, joined as always by Zack and Matt Chatham. We're talking Patriots Cowboys this week. Big matchup on the schedule all year, and there's two teams playing very well right now, but the Patriots will be without two of their top three wide receivers, most likely in this game, Philip Dorsett and Mohamed Sanu. Dorsett's dealing with a concussion they suffered last week. Sanu dealing with an ankle injury they suffered last week on a punt return. So we're talking about Julian Edelman and two rookies out there at wide receiver, N'Keal Harry, the 2019 first-round pick, and Jakobi Meyers, the undrafted free agent. So Tom Brady wasn't the happiest camper after last week's win against the Eagles because the offense was sputtering a little bit. Not sure if he'll be that much happier after this game because the conditions, as you can tell out here, rainy, windy, plus he's throwing to two rookies out there at wide receiver. Obviously, he's got some other options out there at running back and tight end, but definitely not the best weapons that Tom Brady's ever been throwing to out there.
If you thought the Patriots receiving core was in rough shape a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be on a whole another level in that regard today. As you mentioned, Julian Edelman, obviously the old reliable, you're probably going to see a very heavy workload from him today, as we have really for the last 6 or 7 weeks. But the other two options, two rookies, bad conditions, two guys that really haven't kind of fully jived with Tom Brady so far. Even a guy like Jakobi Meyers, who has gotten to work with him a lot more now than N'Keal Harry, you still see some moments like one play last week in Philly where he was supposed to run one route, he ran a different route. You could see the kind of frustration on Tom Brady's face. So he's going to have to integrate those two guys in here, and you can't use them as complementary pieces in a game like this. I mean, you need almost basically two wide receivers on the field at all times for the most part. So one of those two guys, and probably both of those two guys, going to have to play significant roles in this game.
Yeah, I'll go the other side of it. So I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal, and here's the reason. I think if you had to have a bomb like that go off, and it does throughout the course of the season, not just for the Patriots, but for anyone, this would be the conditions you'd want it to have happen, and I think the other things going around the team right now kind of help them buffer it. Now, I'll get into this now. So basically, I think on a day like this, when it's really nasty out, the concerns about, oh my gosh, what's going on with your third, fourth, and fifth wide receiver, those are legitimate and real concerns to have. But on days like this, I don't think you're playing spread. I don't think you're really doing much in 10 personnel, maybe a little bit of 11. But I think what we've seen on tape from these guys a week ago is that some of their most successful sets, the stuff they got in to beat Philly, although it wasn't a messy day, was the stuff where really your flexed out guy often became Ben Watson, and James White is the other guy. I think two wide receivers on the field, which is what 12 personnel is, the two tight ends on the field, the two receivers with them, and then a collection of backs that they can roll through. That's a great grouping that on a mucky day, that's kind of good. So I understand that second wide receiver of the two that will be on there probably throughout the dirt of the game is inexperienced, but it's a guy in N'Keal Harry that I think is going to be just fine. So I look at Jakobi, again, we'll go back to sort of the mistakes he did after the week ago. You're absolutely right. There was a downfield ball. Looked like Tom wanted him to take it away from the safety. He ran to it. It's one play, though, and the one thing I will say about that is the two situations, like, okay, N'Keal got 32 reps. N'Keal got very little reps in the first half, handful of plays, but then the switch kind of flipped on him, and once Mohamed got hurt on the punt return, once Dorsett got banged up. That was when those other two guys came in and slotted in, and yeah, did make some mistakes. The difference now is when you have a week to prepare, they know exactly what you just said, and you're not wrong about it. But then you get to kind of make plays for them you know that they can handle. Now, does that mean this is going to turn into a, hey, don't worry about it, they'll score 30? No, I'm definitely not saying that. What I'm saying is you can come up with a game plan to win. And in these kind of conditions, you can go to 11, you go to 12 personnel, you can go to 21 personnel, which is the one tight end, just two backs on the field, and go with two dangerous backs. You can Burkhead and White on the field. There's just so many ways to work around a receiver issue, which is an absolutely legitimate thing. And in the midst of all that context, you got your left tackle back. It's the news of the day in my view. So definitely those things happen. They create some challenges, but it might be a net, just a net, not net negative or positive. It's just going to be the same kind of thing. You just have to get to it a different way.
I think there is a trickle-down effect with those two receivers going down, though. I mean, you're 12 personnel, that's great because you've got Ben Watson out there, but that other tight end's probably going to be Matt Lacoste, who really hasn't done that much for the Patriots this season. So there is still a trickle-down effect there, but like you said, left tackle Isaiah Wynn, will be back in this game. He's eligible to return. He was activated. He should be out there from all things that Dante Scarnecchia was saying on Friday. We should expect to see Isaiah Wynn out there. So obviously you hope that the pass protection gets better with Isaiah Wynn out there, but you also hope that the run blocking gets better as well, because the Patriots really have struggled to run the ball this season. And with these conditions that we've been talking about, you need to be able to run the ball out there. So I don't know if it's going to be James White, Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel, Brandon Bolden running the ball, but just having that left tackle back out there, and then perhaps you've got Marshall Newhouse used as a jumbo tight end at times. That should help, but we just have to wait and see how much that actually does help.
Yeah, I don't think that Isaiah Wynn is going to be a cure-all for this Patriots offense. I don't think put him back in the lineup and they're suddenly running for 150 yards every game. But I do think he will be a significant upgrade over Marshall Newhouse. And Dante Scarnecchia talked this week about kind of the way that Marshall Newhouse has performed this season. It hasn't been great, but he basically said this guy was like our 7th option. We pulled him off the street because we lost the first 5 guys on that list and just had to stick him. Yeah. They had to stick him right in there. I mean, he made his Patriots debut like 3 days after he signed earlier this year, has started every game since. So it does make sense that the Patriots haven't gotten the type of production that they might want from their left tackle out of him. Yeah, it's there's only so much blame you can put on Marshall Newhouse. But turning back to Isaiah Wynn, very small sample size. Obviously, this is a guy who's played 5 quarters in his entire NFL career, so it's tough to make any grand proclamations about him. But from everything we saw, he's a very good pass protector. He was a very good pass protector going all the way back to his time at Georgia. And even in the running game, he's not a very big guy. He's not a road grader, a guy that's going to go out and run you over. But he's very quick. He's very athletic. He can move a lot. Seems to have a great kind of feel for technique and able to use his size in a way that kind of makes up for the fact that he's not the biggest guy. So I think he'll be a very big upgrade in both areas for the Patriots.
So the biggest thing I would point to with Isaiah and how this could sort of work, the idea 12 personnel, I'm not trying to get too much in the weeds, folks, but the idea that you now finally have 2 tight ends on the field with Isaiah. It's sort of a 3-person combination we've not yet this seen. So there really isn't a comp to whether it'll work or not. What the argument I would make is on these kinds of days, having that 3-man surface of Wynn now alongside potentially Lacoste with Ben and the wing, or flip those 2 around. You now have a 3-man surface that you can run behind. Go to the other side, Marcus those 2 tight ends. And what I think hasn't been a big part, certainly of the last couple of weeks in the passing game, is the Tom under center play action hit the tight ends. Because, in fairness, they did not go into the Eagles game thinking 12 was going to be a big part of it. Why would you? You got Sanu, you got healthy Dorsett, you think you got your full complement of guys. Nikhil's going to play his first game. But that was an in-game adjustment they had to make. Now they got a week of work. They knew Sanu was banged up with the ankle. Hey, we finally got, full game of healthy tight ends, and we're getting our tackle back. Well, hey, we'll pivot. And you know what? The weather was going to be kind of shitty too. So I think there's a lot of reasons to think if they can lean upon that group, if those guys can stay healthy, that stuff works really good in this stuff because you get Tom under center, you get him hard sell play action, pulling it out of a belly after they've run it a couple times, and Ben leaks out. And I think, to me personally, Ben was one of the best stories of a week ago in an ugly game. He made 3 or 4 big time plays, can still run like crazy. And from experience, folks, when you play on these kind of surfaces, it's very difficult to break. So the guys that have they'll generally have the advantage of the guys that can go fast in a straight line. And Ben is not an elusive guy, but Ben is still 4'5". So you block, and let that guy release. I think he can still do some damage today. It's going to be 20-10. It's going to be 20-17, but it's just not. It's not something I think I would be concerned about.
This is an interesting game because you're talking about strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness, where Cowboys offense is the strength of their team. Patriots defense obviously is the strength of their team from what we've been talking about. The Patriots offense is the weakness of their team right now, which is something that we're not really used to seeing. And the Cowboys defense as of late has been the weakness of that team too. So that's really what you're sort of talking about is the weakness going to win out? Is the strength going to win out? And in these conditions, you would think that the more defensive-minded team would probably be in the better shape. But we're talking about the injuries to Philip Dorsett and Mohamed Sanu, limiting the Patriots wide receiver corps. You're also talking about Tom Brady, who's kind of banged up in this game as well. He was listed as questionable with a right elbow injury on Friday, which took a lot of people by surprise. I'm not sure. From what I heard, it wasn't that big of a deal, but there was a report out there this morning from Ian Rappaport who said that he wasn't able to finish practice because of some soreness in that right elbow. So that's just another element that you're talking about when you're talking about weakness versus weakness, strength versus strength. So I'm really not sure how this all goes. I do personally think the Patriots defense should be able to limit this Cowboys offense. Cowboys offense is good, but this is still a 6-4 team that we're talking about that has a lot of talent. but they just haven't really put it all together that well this season.
Yeah, this is a 6-4 team that lost to the Jets a couple weeks ago. A 6-4 team that almost lost to Jeff Driscoll and the Lions last week. A 6-4 team that is 0-3 against teams that are currently in playoff position. So this is a very underachieving Dallas Cowboys team, and especially on a game like this in these kind of conditions, I think this is really where you can see the kind of coaching disparity stand out.
Yeah.
And the coaching disparity between Bill Belichick and Jason Garrett is significant, I would say, to say the least. In a game where one or two plays might make the difference between a win and a loss, I'm going to be leaning toward the team that has Bill Belichick on the sideline over the one that has Jason Garrett.
Yeah, and in games like this, understand that there's going to be so much hammering in those team meetings room with the Patriots about getting situational wins, getting wins in the turnover differential, really being on point with the little things that matter, because this isn't going to be a game, folks, where you go back at the end of the year, you're going to have 16 games to look at. This is going to be one of those box scores that you kind of go, okay, we remember what happened that day, and you kind of just shuffle by the thing. You got to try to win, and it's going to come down to the little things. Ball handling on special teams, handling the center snap for Brady. If you want to sneak it and goose it, and not get the ball on the ground. Dak Prescott and these Cowboys have been spending most of their time in North Texas. So they don't prepare in this kind of stuff. They're not used to this kind of stuff. How teams react to this kind of stuff, we've seen it, for years and years as a player and even as an analyst. A lot of times teams do become acclimated, but it takes a quarter or two. So, how quickly do they get up to speed, or do they put it on the ground 2 or 3 times before, they're out there on the sideline working out and they figure it out. So that's the huge advantage you have here. I think the Patriots, if you were to list the things that are not good today, the 2 receivers being the obvious thing, the things that are good in their favor way outweigh them in my view.
Let's get into defensive keys, offensive keys real quick right now, because this is important. We've been talking about the Patriots offense a lot, so let's actually start off with defensive keys right now. And the Cowboys have a high-powered offense. They've got Dak Prescott, they've got Amari Cooper, they've got Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott. So there's a lot of guys that you have to stop in here. And I know the conditions are bad out there right now, but Dak Prescott has been fantastic this season. I would know he's on one of my fantasy teams, so he's certainly been helping me out there. Not starting him today, though, because he's going up against this Patriots defense. But I do think that, Dak has been so good and he's got so many weapons that this could be a game where the Patriots defense shows, a little bit more weakness. But so my defensive key for the Patriots is just to stop Amari Cooper. And I know that's a difficult thing to do, but you've got Stephon Gilmore to attempt to do it. And there's no better cornerback in the NFL to try to take away a guy like Amari Cooper. And this is really one of Gilmore's toughest matchups of the season, because Amari Cooper is a fantastic receiver. You get down the line, you talk about Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb, there's other receivers to stop, but Cooper is definitely their top guy. And despite the conditions, despite everything that's going on out there, that Gilmore-Cooper matchup is one that I'm certainly going to be watching closely.
Yeah, you could make the case that this is the best receiving trio in the entire NFL, in Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, and Michael Gallup. Just with the conditions, though, I think this is going to be a run-based game, and just with how the Patriots have struggled to defend the run in recent weeks. I know last week they were better, but they were also going up against Boston Scott and Miles Sanders for most of that game. The last 2 times they've played against legitimate rushing attacks, they've really gotten gashed, and they're playing against one of the best in the NFL this week with Ezekiel Elliott in there. I think this is going to be a game where you need to stop the run. You need to make Dak Prescott beat you with his arm, which he can do, which he has done several times this season, but it's going to be very hard to do in these conditions. So I think it's going to be a big stop the run type game for the Patriots.
So the oddball thing that happened with Amari is he actually only was 53% of the snaps a week ago against the Lions. He's been dealing with a knee. He did say, though, in Friday's practice down there in Arlington that he was good to go. He felt full participation guy. So we know he's playing, but banged up, barely played, half a game last week that he played. Now he's coming in here cold with a knee. I honestly think it's a matchup Gilmore should dominate. And even in the interim, I was kind of looking into this, and I was like, wait a minute, how do you stop the Cowboys? Because they've had, I think it's 6 games over 30 points. Right. They've had some explosive big days. Dak has had 2 games where he's had 3 turnover games, and both of the 3 turnover games obviously lost. Anyone's going to generally do that. But I think this just generally comes down to the basic stuff, the cliches. You're going to have to win in the red zone defensively. You're going to have to avoid giving up big plays. You're going to have to work on the national anthem. But I think at the end of the day, you really want to make sure that you win the situational stuff and the ball handling stuff. It sounds silly, it sounds cliched, but that's what today's going to be about. Don't give in to the conditions. Don't give them more opportunities than they deserve.
Got the national anthem blaring there in the background. Hopefully you guys can still hear us. They're warming up there. Let's get into offensive keys in mind. We talked all about the injured receivers. Someone has to step up in this game because you know that Julian Edelman's going to come through. You know that James White's going to come through, but someone else has to be in there. Whether that is Rex Burkhead, who's been dealing with injuries, Ben Watson, who's definitely been stepping up in recent weeks, N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, Matt Lacoste, Sony Michel even maybe could be that guy, but one of those receivers, one of those other receiving threats has to be there for Tom Brady in this game because he can't get by just throwing to Edelman and White, especially because defenses have really been keying in on Edelman as of late. And Edelman's had some bad plays in recent weeks, which is, something that you don't talk about very often with him, but he had the fumble, he had a dropped touchdown pass last week against the Eagles, so, obviously he's got to step up, but someone else there has to as well.
Mine's kind of along those same lines. I think this is going to be a big Edelman game, a big James White game, a big Ben Watson game, but you need something from those 2-3 receivers. You need them to be serviceable. I think the Patriots are going to have a very hard time winning this game if Jacoby Myers and or N'Keal Harry are liabilities out there. If they're kind of actively being detrimental to the offense. I don't think they will. I do think both of them are good players and they've been around in this offense enough now that they should be able to at least be out there and not make mistakes, but that's what they need to do. You can't have mistakes, you can't have negative plays from those number 2-3 guys in this game.
I'm actually very, hopeful would be the word, optimistic about these young guys. I think it's fun to have guys get their big shot. I think it's a great opportunity. They're both very talented. It's not as if we've seen, hey, these guys are young and they've struggled a lot this year. Today they're going to have to not struggle. They've really done a nice job when they've gotten their opportunity. So it's just an unknown. Unknown doesn't mean not good. So I'm more interested that this offense can control tempo by running the football. I don't think on a day like this, if you're hitting your head on the wall and it's 3rd and 8 every single time, then you have a problem. They're going to get the serviceable 3, 4, and 5 yard gains. Sometimes on 1st down, sometimes on 2nd down. But letting Tom pick up tempo and be in 3rd and 2s and 3s throughout the day, they can win this game. I think they can absolutely dominate the time of possession, dominate and control the ball, and do what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, you got a lot of advantages. Take advantage of all of them offensively. Just do the little things, and they'll be just fine.
Let's get into Chatham's choice real quick. Patriots are favored by, 5.5, and the over/under is 44. So, Matt, let's go to you since this is Chatham's choice. It's not Kyed's choice or Cox's choice out here. So, what are you thinking on the betting scale on this one?
These games are scary, folks. When you're in the sort of the world of wagering, when it's windy like it is today, that makes it usually generally difficult to move the football and score points. But when you throw in the wet element as well, sometimes you've seen these corny games where you get a lot of off coverage, you get a lot of catch and run. They just throw the ball to quick passes and you get a quick score and they run the length of the field and go, well, what the hell? Now, how are they scoring in bad weather? So it really can go either side of the 44, so it kind of freaks me out. We saw that in the Cleveland game where you get a quick change. The run that Chubb had here, he goes for 7 yards, then he turns it over, but it's the broken play from a bunch of missed tackles because everybody's body's all slippery. The point of it is, if it was just a windy, nasty day, I think, okay, let's play on the underside of the points, but it's just too dangerous today, especially with an offense like the Cowboys. It could potentially explode. You just never know, and the Patriots have their own questions. So I think you just go with the game. I think you go the fact that they're returned home. The Patriots are gangbusters in this place. They have a really, really healthy roster other than those 2 wide receivers. So I think they come in pretty well buffered to cover the 5.5. And I do think this is going to be a competitive game. So I'd go Pats on the 5.5, but don't be surprised if this game ends up being like 23-16 or something. I mean, it's just going to be that kind of day. You're not going to be happy. We're not going to be writing columns and doing segments all week about how amazing and explosive the offense is. They just need to go out and win.
Zack, what are you thinking?
I would lean toward Patriots 5.5 and the under. I think this is going to be a low-scoring, sloppy game. One thing we didn't touch on earlier that I wanted to mention really quickly: Nick Folk has been good for the Patriots so far. He's made every kick that he's attempted. Has not attempted a kick longer than 39 yards, and has not attempted a kick in any sort of weather conditions like this. How confident will the Patriots be in their kicker? Will they let him out or send him out here to try a 45, 47-yard field goal in these kind of conditions? I think that could be a big storyline here.
The Cowboys guy at his indoor stadium, good God, it's one of those days. So, we'll see, folks.
I'm going under on the 44. I know it's a risk for all the reasons that Chad had mentioned, but I mean the conditions out here. I do think the Patriots defense can halt the Cowboys offense a little bit. And I also think the Patriots offense is going to struggle in this game. So I think the Patriots win. Not confident enough to say that it's going to be by 5.5 points, but I will bang that under. But keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage throughout the week. Follow Matt on Twitter at Chatham58. Follow Zack at Zack NESN, and follow me at Kyed. And we'll have all your coverage after this game.
See you.